Time for the Tesla and the Palantir weekly update. So we're going to start with Tesla here, and I have the Fibonacci pulled up from the all-time high back in 2021 and the low back in 2023. And what do we see here? We see the breakout and a back test of the 886 on linear scale right here going on. So does this have a good chance of holding, right? Do we think that it's going to keep on just building a base on top of this zone and go higher? Well, I'm going to show you some data here that I think you'll find interesting, and maybe it's not really ready to break out yet. And I'm going to tell you why, with starting with the Ichimoku here. So when I put up the Ichimoku, we can see that it did actually close below the conversion line, the 398.88. I was kind of hoping and expecting that it might try to close above today, but it didn't. So that means it is a temporary loss of momentum where this 398, the 400 zone, can now be a resistance. So we had to wait for a weekly candle confirmation for that, and sure enough, it did close below. So that kind of means that the possibility to go to lower levels again, maybe retest this 378 over and over again, is there. It did say it retested it this week, but I don't think it did, right? And we can go to the daily chart here, and it says it did it today, right? The 377.29, it says it went down there today. But when you go to the 15-minute candles here, you can see that the lowest it really went today was right here at 384. So I think the daily and the weekly candles for Tesla are kind of misleading right now. But we're going to focus basically on this anyways, because we can see even on the daily chart, it lost the conversion line and the baseline as support. It lost the previous all-time highs as support, but it's still holding this 378.85. But guess what is below it right there? It is still the cloud, right? And if it went sideways or down a little bit to the cloud, it would get down to the 360s or maybe even 350s. So now what we're going to do is switch to log scale here, and I'm going to show you the possibility of maybe even going back down now to retest the 886 on log scale. And I'm going to show you why I think that's possible by adding on the moving averages here. So the 50-day moving average is at 365.03, right? And we can see that there is a possibility to just keep trending lower to retest that and maybe do like a quick liquidity grab to get down towards the 353 zone. And another confirmation of confluence is when I go to the linear scale GAN right here that I showed you before. I want to show you that. So after it broke out above this orange level here, see it was resistance for maybe 3 weeks in a row here. It broke out, got rejected with this 45-degree angle, which this whole zone used to be a resistance, okay? So check it out. It could come back down to retest it, and that's around 358. Right, 358 is that zone. So that means there's a lot of confluence with lower price action now that price has closed below that 398 level, the $400 level. So that confirmation makes me believe that Tesla might just want to retest the high 360s, sorry, the low 360s or the high 350s maybe one more time before we go higher. But I want you to pay attention here because this is still not a bearish situation at all. You can see this whole zone was massive resistance before, right? And now it's just a back test of a huge resistance zone in the past to support. So this is still basically the whole all-time high previous zone here. That is just back testing a little bit deeper. So don't be scared if it did get to the low 360s or the high 350s, or even going back down, like I said, to wick through this log scale 353, right? Even going back down here, because maybe on the daily chart, it just wants a little bit more time to go down to sideways, perhaps maybe to get closer to the cloud before going back higher. So with all this confluence of resistance right now, right, we're going to put it all together. We got the daily baseline, the daily conversion line. We got the previous all-time high, 414.50, acting as resistance. We got the weekly 414.50 Fibonacci as well, plus the weekly conversion line at 398.88. So that is all looking like it's going to be resistance now, because it closed below. So this is all just maybe a temporary loss of momentum that needs more time to consolidate down to sideways before trying to break higher again. And next is Palantir. And Palantir actually was similar to Tesla in the regard that it closed below the weekly uh, Ichimoku conversion line. So 7166 was that conversion line. It did close below. It actually also closed below this 618, this 1.618 fib extension, the 6915. So this is the first time it actually closed below two resistance levels right here. But the question is, does it need to come back down to the 6118 right here, the 1.414, or can it just continue to just build a base a little bit underneath this resistance zone and then go higher? And I think the daily chart might actually have the answer, right? We can pay attention to this 50-day moving average. This 50-day moving average is right here at 66.53, and price did in fact close back above it at 67.25. So this is going to be the focus. If this holds day over day over day over day, then it can just continue to build a base, maybe alongside this cloud, and then ready to go to the 2.272, right? But if it starts to close daily candles underneath this 66.53 zone, then it might need to head back down towards the bottom of the cloud here in the low 60s, maybe even touch this 61.18 level for the continuation higher after that. But both scenarios, they're still okay for the high time frame. They're still bullish for the high time frame, and I think what's really important is to focus on the high time frame because the trend is still your friend and it's still very, very powerful. And I think either scenario, whether it maintains this 50-day or if it comes back down to retest the low 60s here, that I think either way is okay. And also, when we go to the log scale chart here, I want to just zoom out and show you that it's still well above this blue angle, still well above the arc here. So it does have some room to come back down towards the low 60s here, which actually next week, that blue angle would be the low 60s, right? It would be the low 60s right here. So the possibility to come back down there and retest this angle is there because it was a previous resistance here, right? It was a previous support down here. So it would be just a previous resistance flipping back to a support for the continuation higher. So no matter what, this chart is still extremely bullish, and it doesn't matter to me which way it goes in the short term because I see the longer term trajectory, and that is basically towards the 130s. And the same thing for Tesla, right? Tesla is super bullish still for the long term. So it doesn't really matter what the short term is. So just relax and enjoy the ride.